Welcome back to Minute Anime. In this video we are going to recap the first 3 episodes of Dark Gathering. You can find more anime recaps listed in the playlists and subscribe not to miss any video. Now let's start, otakus. In a chilling incident, a young girl deliberately broke a statue and hung a spooky-looking toy from its neck. The toy had a scary way of moving, adding to the eerie atmosphere. What made it even stranger was that the girl had eyes resembling a skull, with 2 pupils. She boldly declared her determination to find something, even if it was hidden in the toilet. Meanwhile, at the welcome assembly of Rio University, the student with the highest entrance exam score had the honor of delivering a speech. The administration introduced Keitaro Gentoga as the freshman class representative. Keitaro had an aversion to the supernatural, as he seemed to attract spirits naturally. A past encounter with a malicious spirit had left him terrified of putting others in danger. After his encounter caused him to get cursed and dragged a close friend of him into it that got cursed too. That caused him to isolate himself for 2 years. However, with the support of his friend Eiko and his family, he had slowly started to reintegrate into society during the past year. After the assembly, Keitaro spent time with Eiko, and they took a picture together. Strangely, the picture appeared blurred, as if a spirit was interfering with it. This unnerved Keitaro, and he regretted taking the photo. Eiko asked about the tutoring job she had recommended to him, and Keitaro was relieved to share that he had indeed secured the job. Eiko mentioned that the idea came from her cousin, who was also receiving tutoring there. Eiko was pleased to see Keitaro adapting to society, excelling in class, and working as a tutor. Furthermore, she was delighted that they would be attending the same school again. Later, in the tutor square, Keitaro's boss provides him with information about his first student. Despite landing the job, Keitaro felt anxious due to his lack of social skills after his 2-year hiatus. Surprisingly, the student he was assigned to tutor was the most promising one in the tutor square, who had specifically requested him because of his top academic position. Meanwhile, the girl who had broken the statues was in a room filled with toys with glowing eyes. Holding a candle, she repeated the phrase "come out." On a separate note, Keitaro arrived at his student's house and realized it was none other than his friend Eiko's place. Eiko answered the door and questioned why he was there. Keitaro explained that he had come to teach a little girl, only to discover that the girl was Eiko's young cousin, who had been living with her for the past year. Eiko warmly welcomed Keitaro into her home and called for her cousin, Yae. However, as Yae appeared, Keitaro couldn't help but feel frightened by her unusual double pupils and the overwhelming power he sensed from her. The toy she held seemed to emanate an even stronger force. Concerned, Eiko stepped in to check on Keitaro and encouraged him to act normally around Yae. Soon, Yae asked Keitaro to accompany her to a haunted place. Initially, he declined, but she threatened to falsely accuse him of harassment, leaving him with no choice but to comply. As they rode in the car, Keitaro tried to convince Eiko to turn back, but she seemed careless, treating the outing like a fun adventure. Keitaro, however, felt something eerie along the way, even though they were still a kilometer away from their destination. This scared him even more, leading Yae to mock him. Finally arriving at their destination, they found themselves at an old telephone booth with a dark history. The tragic tale began when a girl sought refuge in the booth to escape multiple men who were following her. Unfortunately, they found her there, and she met a gruesome end. Legend had it that anyone who dared to enter the booth or call its telephone number would face a horrific fate, as the girl's vengeful spirit still haunted the place. Despite the ominous legend, Yae boldly entered the booth, causing Keitaro to hurriedly pull her out, fearing for her safety. Surprisingly, Yae claimed to feel nothing, leading Eiko to believe that it might all be a made-up story. However, Keitaro's anxiety towards the booth persisted. Yae then decided to call the telephone booth number, which they found on the internet, but Keitaro stopped her again. Eiko suggested calling it herself, but in the end, Keitaro decided to make the call himself to protect his friends from any potential harm. As Keitaro made the call, he heard a desperate voice pleading for help from the other end. To his horror, a print of a bloody hand appeared on the telephone booth glass, followed by a ghastly face. The booth's door ominously creaked open. Yae, seemingly unfazed, stepped inside and threw her toy into the booth. Shockingly, the toy swelled and exploded, splattering blood all over the booth's glass. In a rush, they quickly leave the haunted place and drive away. The toy is thrown out of the telephone booth after they depart. Back at home, Keitaro is frustrated with Yae's actions and questions what her parents would think about what she's been doing. Mentioning her parents angers Yae, and Eiko asks to talk to Keitaro after class. During the class, Keitaro gives Yai some challenging questions, and she answers them all correctly, showing that she is not mentally disturbed. Keitaro then asks if she sees spirits, and she openly admits that she sees them clearly and loves them. Yai shares that the spirit in the telephone booth did not appear for her, but it did as soon as Keitaro made the call. Curious about Keitaro's abilities, she asks how often he attracts spirits. He admits that he always attracts them but refuses to show more of his powers. After the class, Keitaro sits down with his best friend, Eiko. Eiko asks him not to be angry with Yai and reveals that Yai has been living with her for the past year and a half after losing her parents in a car accident. Ever since, Yai has been visiting haunted places in search of her mother. Yai, in her sleep on the second floor, dreams about her past life. Her mother took her to a doctor to examine her unusual eyes with double pupils. The doctor found that her eyes were functioning normally, but Yai experienced double vision, seeing both the normal world and a shadowy spirit world. The doctor recommended observation, but on their way home, Yai started seeing the shadowy figures everywhere. Feeling scared, her mother comforted her by suggesting a trip to the amusement park with her father, which cheered her up. At the park, she won a big stuffed bear and had fun. However, tragedy struck as they were driving home. A driver controlled by a malevolent spirit crashed into their car, resulting in the death of her parents, and leaving Yai with a severe head injury. After the accident, she realized that her double pupils allowed her to see both the normal world and the spirit world simultaneously. After the accident, Yai recalls the traumatic event where a mysterious creature kidnapped her mother's spirit while her father's spirit could find peace. This heartbreaking experience fueled her determination to find her mother's spirit and set her free. Yai wakes up and encounters Keitaro speaking to Eiko. Despite facing his own long-lasting struggles, Keitaro empathizes with Yai and understands the depth of her loneliness and sadness caused by her mother's kidnapping. The next day, Yai insists on returning to the telephone booth, and she gifts Keitaro a Jizo statue featuring Eiko's pantyhose, claiming it will protect him from malevolent entities. At the telephone booth, Keitaro questions the reason for being there again. Yai explains that she tried calling the telephone number multiple times, but the spirit blocked her. She pleads with Keitaro to stay with her and help. As the spirit manifests as blood on the glass and smiles, Keitaro loses control of his cursed right hand, which pulls him into the booth, leaving him stuck. The spirit starts strangling him with the telephone wire, and Keitaro clutches the statue, unsure of its protective powers. As he weakens, the statue slips from his hand. Yai intervenes, using her tools to open the door and grabbing the statue. She fiercely smashes the telephone with the statue's unbelievable power. She then offers her hand to Keitaro, promising to keep him safe whenever she is around, no matter how much he fears the supernatural. In the car on the way home, Eiko expresses relief that everyone survived, but Keitaro feels uneasy. He is surprised that they have already dealt with the spirit and are far from the telephone booth. Meanwhile, in the back seat, Yai keeps the telephone speaker in the toy and pretends to strangle it. Back home, they celebrate with a cake. Eiko confronts Keitaro, pointing out that when he made the call the day before, he appeared anxious but also strangely happy. Keitaro denies it, trying to hide his true feelings. Eiko assures him they won't need to go back to the booth since there is nothing there anymore. This raises a question in Keitaro's mind: if Yai has such an elevated level of sensitivity towards spirits, why does she need him? One possibility is that spirits themselves are avoiding her. In Eiko's room, she places the toy with the telephone part in the center, surrounded by candles. The toy's glowing eyes are fixated on the object. Shadows of hands appear in the room, meticulously cutting away another shadow representing the spirit from the telephone booth. The shadows take parts of it until it disappears completely. A day later, after Keitaro finishes teaching Yai, she suggests going to haunted places together. However, Keitaro declines, as he has other plans. He is scheduled to undergo an exorcism to help manage his curse. Keitaro's grandmother, who runs the shrine and has been supporting him since the curse, will conduct the exorcism. When they arrive at the shrine, Keitaro's grandmother recognizes Yai and becomes furious because Yai had destroyed 7 Jizo statues, not just 5. Yai corrects the number, and the grandmother appears ready to attack her. Keitaro steps in, explaining that he is taking care of Yai due to his responsibilities and efforts to improve his social skills. Eventually, the grandmother calms down and decides not to harm Yai but warns her to stay away from Keitaro, or there will be consequences. Despite her spiritual powers, the grandmother seems to acknowledge that Yai possesses even greater strength. The exorcism begins with the grandmother and a doctor to numb Keitaro's hand, which has been affected by the curse. She uses a sword to perform the operation, a process she has been helping Keitaro with regularly. Without her assistance, Keitaro might not have made any progress in dealing with his condition. While waiting for Keitaro's exorcism to finish, Eiko and Yai are in another part of the room. Yai grows bored and wants to observe the operation, but Eiko forbids her. Instead, Eiko shows her a picture of Keitaro's hand without the glove, revealing the nerve growth that causes him pain. The nerves need to be cut regularly, accompanied by prayer. After the operation, Keitaro and the grandmother are exhausted. Eiko and Yai bring them drinks, and Keitaro excuses himself to go to the toilet. When Yai notices the cut nerves, she and Eiko approach. Yai asks the grandmother to keep some of the cut nerves, and the grandmother agrees. She offers to tell Yai a story related to spiritual matters, and Yai eagerly accepts. In the grandmother's shrine, they hold memorial services for cursed dolls, taking care of them. The most dangerous dolls are kept locked away in the shrine sanctuary's basement, which no one is allowed to enter. On his way to the toilet, Keitaro comes across a yellow stuffed bear and picks it up. Instantly, he becomes controlled by the bear's influence and decides to take it to the sanctuary while his grandmother is tired. Meanwhile, the grandmother tells the girls about the basement sanctuary, a place where anyone who ventures down becomes trapped, unable to rest, and possessed by the dolls. Yai finds the story amusing, much to the grandmother's surprise. However, Yai notices Keitaro walking in an unconscious manner, holding a Japanese doll with long hair that matches the description of the most powerful doll. Yai realizes that Keitaro was possessed because his powers weakened after the operation, and the grandmother is unable to save him for the same reason. Yai takes the grandmother's sword and intends to save Keitaro herself. In the basement, the dolls are arranged side by side, their shining eyes and prayers written on the walls. Keitaro sits in the middle, holding the possessed doll, and begins losing consciousness. The doll's hair slips into his throat, choking him. Yai intervenes just in time, cutting the doll's hair and then its head. She bravely confronts the other dolls, threatening them with the same fate if they harm humans. Her fearless talk seems to scare the dolls, and their eyes dim. The grandmother and Eiko enter the basement to help Keitaro stand up. The grandmother is puzzled by how the little girl managed to save him on her own. Keitaro thanks her for saving his life once again. After their eventful day, the grandmother bids them farewell. Keitaro confides in his grandmother, praising Yai as a good kid who is very helpful and supportive of his improvement. The grandmother advises him to buy her a souvenir as a token of gratitude and to pray for her, hoping it will dispel any lingering negative influences. She reassures Keitaro that his power is a gift and encourages him to reach out whenever he needs help. Keitaro buys small Jizo dolls as souvenirs for Yai. She thanks him and offers to show him her collection when they return home. However, upon entering Yai's room, Keitaro is overwhelmed with fear. He wonders how he failed to sense the presence of the dolls she owns, which are some of the most dangerous. Yai enters her room and places the doll that had attacked Keitaro earlier, revealing that she stole it from the basement and used his nerves to reattach its head. Keitaro regrets getting close to Yai, feeling that the more he connects with her, the further he drifts from the life he desires. Panicking, he stumbles into Eiko, who seems unfazed by the situation. Yai reassures him that nothing will harm him. Then, she looks into his eyes with her glowing red eyes and asks for his nails. Over the next few days, Yai persistently asks for Keitaro's nails and tries to groom them by force, but he keeps avoiding her. Eiko suggests going to a haunted place to divert Yai's attention from Keitaro's nails. Keitaro refuses, but they manage to drag him along. However, in the car, they find Keitaro leaving, and Yai taunts him, calling him a chicken. His temper flares up, and he screams, expressing his desire to stay away from spirits. He regrets getting cursed and hurting his best friend, Eiko. Yai asks him if he dislikes scary stuff, and he agrees, adding that his curse is indeed a problem for him. Realizing this, Yai decides they can go to the haunted place without him. In the car with Eiko, Yai shares that she assumed Keitaro loves supernatural things since he could get rid of the curse in his hand if he wanted to. This revelation surprises Eiko, who didn't know there was a way to remove the curse. Yai reveals that Eiko is actually Keitaro's friend who got cursed because of him. She suggests a place where they can find something to break the curse and they head there together. Meanwhile, Keitaro follows his grandmother's advice and works on his stamina by running. He passes by a store and decides to enter to get something for his next class with Yai. Yai and Eiko are heading towards the destination where there are hundreds of Jizo statues watched over by a maternal figure. Stories say that the ghosts of the unborn children haunt the grounds, and Kishimojin, the goddess of children and childbirth, seeks revenge. On the way, Eiko notices spirits all around. Upon reaching the location, Yai asks Eiko to stay in the car and not leave it as the place is dangerous. She warns Eiko to call for help if she doesn't return in an hour. Yai climbs the stairs and enters the place, walking amidst many Jizo statues. She came to this place for Kishimojin, a once evil goddess who devoured children. After losing one of her own children, she stopped eating children and instead devoted herself to protecting them. However, Yai senses something off and activates her vision. She sees Kishimojin surrounded by the souls of the unborn, and the goddess is also surrounded by numerous minions. Unprepared for this situation, Yai refuses to back down and points a stuffed bear at the goddess. Suddenly, an umbilical cord appears, holding Yai's leg, and a Jizo statue appears behind her as the goddess calls for her. Yai gets knocked down, and the statue falls toward her. After an hour, Eiko becomes worried and goes to look for help. Fortunately, Yai survived the statue fall just in time and escaped with only a sprained leg. She realizes the umbilical cord was just ivy, not a real threat. Yai grabs paper dolls to serve as her proxies and encounters a baby spirit, finding it helpful. Eiko manages to find Keitaro and tells him about the situation, but he initially ignores it, believing it was their own choice to deal with the curse. However, when Eiko reveals that Yai was trying to find a cure for the curse, Keitaro feels a sense of responsibility for the past incident where he hurt Eiko and decides to help Yai and not let her down or endanger herself for his sake. Meanwhile, Kishimojin continues to pursue Yai, who can barely run due to her injured leg. She uses the paper dolls as a distraction, claiming to have captured one of Kishimojin's unborn spirits, and manages to evade her momentarily. Yai hides in a temple, and when Kishimojin's spirits approach, they suddenly change direction and leave, going elsewhere. Keitaro arrives at the temple, running from the spirits chasing after him. He calls out for Yai and finally sees her limping. Yai grabs a piece of Kishimojin's statue with a hammer to defend herself. To save Yai, Keitaro baits as many spirits as he can and leads them around the temple. Eventually, he carries Yai and rushes to the car, where Eiko drives them away from the place. Though Eiko's car crashes in the process, they manage to escape, leaving the angry spirit behind. Keitaro pays for Yai's hospital check and Eiko's car repair, which leaves him almost broke. He also carries Yai home due to her injured leg. He expresses gratitude for what she has done for him and asks her why she risked herself for him. The way Keitaro is carrying Yai reminds her of her father, and she explains that she wanted to help him because he's like family. She wished she had the power to save her mother's spirit when it was kidnapped by a creature or at least lessen her pain. Keitaro is a friend and family to her, which is why she wanted to help him get rid of his pain. She asks him to trust her and visit her room again to reveal why she needed his nails. In Yai's room, she asks Keitaro if he knows what paper dolls are, and he explains that they are little figures that take on misfortune to protect you. Yai reveals that to create such a paper doll, you need to give it a part of your physical body. Keitaro notices the busted-up dolls in her room, and Yai explains that each plushie contains a piece of her, serving as her proxies. If any spirit tries to harm her, they will all take damage, protecting her from harm. She has done this for everyone in the Hozuki family, ensuring their safety. Keitaro realizes that all this time, Yai wanted to protect him. Yai further explains that she only shows her collection to people she trusts to prove that she will always be their friend. She throws the Kishimojin finger on the floor, and the surviving spirits attack it immediately. Yai offers Keitaro a nail and makes the finger beg for it, asserting her control over the spirits. Keitaro asks her why she is collecting all these spirits, and Yai reveals that she is gathering an army of spirits to defeat the creature that kidnapped her mother. Her collection will empower her and instill in her the willingness to do anything to win, whether it be good or evil. She promises to try again to remove Keitaro's curse once her ankle heals. Yai can make one spirit kill another, which is why she wanted to capture the goddess spirit to get her to kill the spirit that attacked Keitaro and break the curse. Keitaro had always believed his curse was unremovable, but now there is hope not only for him but also for Eiko to help her get rid of her curse as well. Yai realizes that they may want different things, but both need the same solution. She proposes uniting their powers to catch scary spirits and use them to defeat even more powerful and dangerous ones. Are they going to unite their powers? And how will things turn out to be? That was all for today. Subscribe to keep up with Yai and Kataro's adventures. A like for the video if you liked it. And see you in the next one.